how to start moving forward in your life. Start making behavioral changes faster. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Engineer community. Here, Tony Walker sharing insight and tools to help you start making changes in your life. So I want to share a little bit more about how to start moving forward in your life, how to start making behavioral changes, because that's one of the main reasons why so many people are stuck, not being able to move forward. And it has to do with understanding how the mind works first, guys. As I always say, if you want to fix a car, hey Alexa, nice for stopping by. So if you want to fix a car, it's important that we understand how the car works, because if not, it's going to make it very difficult to be able to fix a car. If I want to write a nice book, I need to know about literature, about writing and things like that, right? Whatever I want to do, I need to understand what is behind the knowledge, the tools to be able to help me do that better. And again, as I've said many times, a lot of what people are consuming is not the right way to make changes in your mind. And I'm going to prove it to you give me 2 minutes and I'm going to prove it to you. So let me ask you this. When you're in a bad mood, when you're doing something, and you want to change it, if somebody comes to you and tells you, hey, Tommy, stop doing that. Hey, Tommy, knock it off. Tommy, you got to change that. Stop doing what you're doing. How do you normally react to that? Put it in the chat if you take it in a good way or you take it in a bad way. Right? When somebody attacks any type of behavior, any type of way that you are behaving, responding, acting, whatever, how do you tend to react when they start accusing you, kind of attacking you or telling you that you're doing something wrong? And the answer for most people is they get defensive. They tend to close down. We don't open up. So if somebody does that to you and you close down, how do you think your mind is going to react when you do it to yourself? Seriously, think about that for a second. If you treat yourself like crap when you're doing something that is not acceptable, what you're doing is closing your mind to change. And then you complain because you cannot change. So a lot of people that are trying to change behaviors, whatever that is, they want to be able to start creating, more healthy behaviors. They want to start going to the gym. They want to start, doing more exercise. They want to eat less. They want to stop smoking. They want to stop drinking. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter. We need to first understand how the mind works. So when you're beating yourself up for the behavior that you're having, what you're doing is creating pain. And the pain, the mind needs to deal it the way it knows. How does the mind normally deal with pain? Moving away from pain and doing things to try to numb it, try to repress it, try to reject it. So imagine this. I'm feeling sad and I reject it. I'm going to create more pain. And that is going to create more of the behavior that I'm trying to change. So when we're trying to change a behavior, I'm going to go deeper in a second. The idea is to treat ourselves how we would like others to treat us if we had something that they're inviting us to change. Because attacking is not working for most people. It is not working for most people. So we need to find other, more loving ways to start making changes. So how could that look like? So listen to this for a second. Imagine that I'm eating and I want to slow down the eating. I want to eat less. I want to stop eating, binge eating and things like that. When I beat myself, I create more pain. When I create more pain, the mind knows to use binge eating to try to numb the pain. So I'm creating the same behavior that I'm trying to get rid of. So I jump on this, hamster wheel that I cannot get off. And that's why a lot of people struggle over and over again making changes. So binge eating many times, most of the times, is a protective mechanism, is a mechanism that was created, a behavior and adaptation to try to numb the pain. So the idea, instead of asking yourself or beating yourself up for the binge eating, instead I want to invite you to ask yourself, why the pain? Instead of why the binge eating, why the pain? Why the pain behind drinking? Why the pain behind eating? Why the pain behind smoking? Why the pain behind, buying, buying too much, spending money that you don't have? Why the pain? Instead of why the binge eating, why the alcohol, why the drinking, why the smoking, change the question to why the pain? Why is there pain behind the alcohol, the binge eating, the smoking, whatever behavior you're having? What you're telling me with your behavior that there is pain. So if there is pain, the idea is to start understanding why the pain is there. Don't go into a war with yourself, guys, because a war is going to create more pain. More pain is going to be dealt the way you've learned how to deal it, whether it is smoking, drinking, eating, buying, or whatever. So when we start understanding that the pain created the adaptation, the behavior in the first place, we need to find a way to lower or, dissipate, dissolve the pain. And it's not about beating yourself up more, because you've experienced that if you keep doing the same things you're doing, you're going to get the same results. Nothing is going to change. You're not going to be able to change it. You keep doing the same things. So what if we try making a change, guys? Understanding again how the mind works. So look, there's something even more. Why the pain? When we were kids and we started feeling pain, normally it was because there was a lack of love. It could come through judgment, criticism, rejection. Maybe somebody made fun of us. Something happened when we were growing up. We didn't feel accepted. We didn't feel validated. We didn't feel recognized. And that pain started there. So look, if I would judge, criticize, rejected, bullied, made fun of, and that created pain, then an adaptation was created to try to numb the pain. That could have been getting very angry, right? Eating, smoking, drinking. And now I'm beating myself up because of the behavior that I have that is trying to protect me from the pain. What I'm doing is creating more pain. So if you create more pain, you're going to create more of the behavior that is trying to protect you from that pain. In this case, it could be procrastination. It could be anything that is an adaptation to protect you from the pain. So what I want to invite you guys is something that is very different. So again, let me ask you this. Do you find it that sometimes you treat yourself like crap? You say, Tommy, you're so stupid. Tommy, you did it wrong again. Look, you're silly. You're not good enough. You're a piece of shit. You're this, you're that. Do you sometimes type a yes or no in the chat if you treat yourself like crap? Do you sometimes treat yourself like crap? Do you speak in a very negative way towards yourself sometimes? Yes, I know the answer. Thank you. The answer is, for most people, yes. So people find it very easy to criticize, judge, treat themselves like crap. So what I want to introduce to you guys is how to start loving and accepting yourself more. To love and accept the part of you that chose, that found that binge eating was the way to protect itself from pain. Instead of beating it up, is loving and accepting, hugging yourself and saying, a part of me is seeking for binge eating, smoking, drinking, buying, whatever, spending money as a way to deal with the pain. So look, the inner conversation, instead of beating yourself up, would be something like this. Thank you, Tommy, for finding a way to deal with your pain because you didn't know another way. The thing is, you know what, Tommy, I'm realizing that by smoking, binge eating, drinking, whatever, we are deteriorating. It is affecting our health. So what if we can find another way to deal with the pain? How did that sound, guys? Put a yes if it makes sense in the chat, or no if it doesn't make sense in the chat. To talk to yourself like that. Instead of beating yourself up, Tommy, you're so stupid. Tommy, you're so silly. Tommy, you screwed up again. You're a failure. You don't know what you're doing. That doesn't work. We are very accustomed to talking ourselves to ourselves like crap, but we're not used to being loving to ourselves. Very few people talk about self-love because very few people know what that is. And this is a part of it. So if you can talk to yourself like crap really badly, why can't we start practicing talking to ourselves in the most loving way possible? So again, I'll give you another example. Imagine that I'm smoking. Instead of beating myself up for smoking is, okay, I am now understanding that I'm using smoking to deal with a pain. So I'm going to give myself a hug and I'm going to thank myself and say, hey, Tommy, thank you very much for protecting us from the pain through smoking, because that's the only way you knew how to deal with the pain. It makes total sense. I appreciate, what you're trying to do. So far, so good, right? Positive talking in a way, and it's not fake positivity, it's true. You know what I'm realizing, Tommy? That smoking is affecting our lungs, is reducing our lung capacity, the amount of oxygen that is there, is smoking a lot of toxics into our body, and it's really messing us up. So what if we can find another way to deal with the pain? It's an invitation, not a rejection, not a judgment, not an ultimatum, not authoritarianism. It is true love. Hey, Tommy, what if we can find a better way to deal with pain? So now that we're addressing that, supposedly, if we've done it correctly and we're able to truly connect with ourselves, the mind should be open to something different. So each person is unique. But one of the things that I do initially with people is help them connect with the pain. And yes, it is painful, guys. Connecting with the pain is painful. Most people move away because they don't know how to deal with the pain and because it's painful and they were taught to run away from the pain. But the idea is, look at this a second. I would say something like, you know what I'm learning, Tommy, now? That the pain could be our best way to grow, to become stronger. Because when we go to the gym, when we do exercise, our muscles ache for a little bit, but then they get stronger, they get bigger. So what I'm realizing is that pain can be a great teacher. Look how I'm rephrasing what pain is. Before, people were trained to think that pain was bad, mostly when it was emotional pain. What I'm trying to do here is to reframe what pain is. So again, I understand that before you used to do this because you didn't know another way. I am now learning that pain can be used to grow exponentially. It is a teacher in disguise. And then we can check to see if this is going on into our mind, if it's making sense, if there is any part of us that might be rejecting this and saying like, no, I don't want to do this or whatever. So next step is, again, so what if we go through this pain to understand where it's coming from, what could have happened in the past that has created this pain? So you start opening the mind to let the mind reveal what might have happened that started creating pain. And back then you had no idea how to deal with it. So now suddenly what we start doing, similar to inner child healing, is we become the loving adult and supporting the child within us, the subconscious mind, to help it go through the challenge that it's going through, learn a new way to deal with the pain. So, okay, pain, how are you feeling with this pain? What is this pain? What is the emotion behind this pain? It could be anger. Okay, feel the anger and start teaching yourself that anger is okay. The thing, guys, think about this for a second. When we were kids, were we allowed to feel anger? Were we allowed to express anger? As kids, Normally, we were rejected whenever we got angry. We were rejected if we, showed anger, if we started screaming or things like that. So since childhood, we were not allowed to express our negative emotions. That's why it resonates so much, this crap about toxic positivity, because it's aligned with not expressing your negative emotions. But the truth is, emotions are emotions. They're not good or bad emotions. They're just emotions, positive or negative, but not as good or bad. So the idea is, okay, I feel anger. Let's feel it. Feel the anger. Clench your fists, your hands into fists. Press them. Press any part of your body you can. Clench, there. Feel the anger. What would you like to go punch, a pillow? Go punch your bed if you want to. Start teaching yourself that you are allowed to be able to express anger. And I promise you, as you start practicing that, another emotion might come up. It could be shame. It could be sadness. It could be loneliness. And now we feel that emotion again. Okay, a part of me, listen to the words, a part of me is feeling shame. A part of me is feeling sadness. So I start creating space for all our emotions. I don't cover them up. I don't deny them. I embrace them. I try to learn from them. Negative emotions bring a great opportunity for you to grow. Unfortunately, again, we've been taught to deny, repress our emotions. We were taught that they're bad. And that's what we tend to do nowadays. But that same adaptation, that same behavior we've learned from our parents is the same behavior that is now getting us stuck. So the idea is to be able to start creating space for every emotion to feel them, because I guarantee, again, if you truly feel them from acceptance, validation, what's going to start happening is the feelings are going to start dissolving, are going to start going down in the level of intensity to a level that are going to be manageable. And I tell people, I sometimes get scared. I sometimes get triggered. I sometimes feel anxiety, sadness or anguish or stress. But in most cases, it doesn't block me from moving my life forward, because I've learned to accept it, validate it, go through it as a learning experience. Because remember, behind our emotions, negative emotions, there are stories, negative beliefs, negative, limiting, and false beliefs that we might be telling ourselves. So we have beliefs that trigger emotions. Emotions create adaptations or create behaviors. The more we understand how the mind works, we're going to be able to start dealing with these pains, emotions, right? Painful emotions, if you want to call them like that, right? Learn from them, grow, and be able to start making changes faster. Because again, the binge eating, the procrastination, the drinking, the smoking, all of those are the byproduct of something deeper. Deal with the root cause, and things can start changing much faster and much easier. So with this method of RSR that I've created, these steps that I'm recognizing, that I'm sharing with you: identify, recognize, accept, validate, love, learn, and then reprogram. And that's exactly through the steps that I brought you to. So imagine somebody is binge eating. Okay, what's going on? Identify, recognize, validate, accept, love the part of you that is using that behavior as a protective mechanism. Then learn from it. What is it trying to protect you from? Right? Love and acceptance, healing from something from the past. Love and accept the part of you that created that behavior, and try to learn why. What is it trying to protect you from? What is going on? What could have happened in the past that created pain that was not dealt correctly? Go to those moments in the past in your mind, imagine them back again, and walk through them, but from another point of view now, from an adult that is looking back and could be helping that inner child go through that experience that nobody was there maybe for that part of you. And then suddenly what starts happening is the mind slowly starts releasing the pain and dissolves the pain and doesn't need that behavior as it needed before. And so what I tell people, we work on dissolving the problems, the behaviors, not changing anything. Because as you love and accept yourself, every part of you, and you understand and you learn from them, suddenly the behaviors start changing. So let me know what you think in the chat. I would love to hear if you heard something like that, if you tried this before. If you have any questions, let us know and we'll